Hey, good Monday morning, everybody. BAM Weather Meteorologist Brett Waltz here, giving you a long-range forecast update, guys. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. The theme over the next 2 weeks is going to be busy. A lot of cold fronts, a lot of storm systems, a pattern change coming as we get into the end of October and into the start of November. We've been talking about that for a couple of weeks now, and the data this morning seeing that trend very well as we close out this month and head into November. Before we get to that, I do want to talk about the short term, and then we will get into the very active pattern that's developing later this week and through next week for the central to eastern part of the country. As we work into tomorrow morning, we have a cold front that will bring some colder than normal temperatures across parts of the Mountain West. Temperatures down into the 20s across a pretty widespread area out there, into parts of the western plains as well. And then as we work into your Wednesday and into your Thursday, you can start to see that cooler air creep further to the east. You can see frost potential all the way down maybe into parts of northern Kansas, northern Missouri, through a good portion of Iowa. At this point, for a lot of these areas in terms of the frost potential, we are later than normal, but some freeze potential up through the northern plains, northwest parts of Iowa, Nebraska as well. And then as we work into your Thursday morning, you can see more widespread frost potential down through parts of the Ohio Valley, probably patchy in nature across Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. On Thursday, at least, more widespread across the upper Midwest and the northern plains. But as we work into your Friday, you can see more of those pink colors show up, which indicates temperatures getting close to the freezing mark across central and northern Indiana, much of Ohio, northern Kentucky, and into West Virginia, with maybe a hard freeze in parts of the upper peninsula of Michigan and into Wisconsin, before temperatures begin to warm back up into the weekend ahead of our big storm systems next week. If we take a look at high temperatures, you can see as we go throughout this week, pretty chilly across parts of the Great Lakes, the upper Midwest, parts of the Ohio Valley, into the Northeast, below normal temperatures. But we will be warming things back up as we work into this weekend and into early next week, back into the 60s and 70s across the southern tier of the U.S. Warmer than normal temperatures ahead of our bigger storm system as we work closer to Halloween. A couple of big storm systems possible next week. And we'll be able to see that here in the temperature departure with the GEFS. I think the 6C run doing a good job seeing this overall pattern over the next couple of weeks. You can see a cooler than normal air in the short term, guys. You can see that front that moves in middle to latter part of this week, lingers around even a little bit longer than what initial data had as we go throughout the back half of this week. And I do think that's something to note. Model data has struggled to see the intensity of these fronts in the extended range. While overall we've certainly had more mild days than cooler days for the central to eastern U.S. throughout October, these fronts, as we've gotten towards the back half of this month, have packed a little bit more of a punch than modeled in the extended range. And I think that's something we need to continue to keep in mind with our fronts to close this month. I would not be shocked to see over the next couple of days model data continue to trend a bit cooler for the eastern half of the country last day or two of October, and especially into the first couple of days of November. Taking a look here, guys, though, just generally as we work into this weekend and into early next week, we get that cooler air out of the Ohio Valley, out of the southeast. It lingers a little bit longer in the northeast, but you can see more widespread, warmer than normal temperatures picking up as we work into late this weekend, early next week across the central to eastern part of the country. That's ahead of our big storm system by the middle part of next week. As that starts to sweep in, you can see the cooler trend, and it will be a gradual, continuous cooler trend. We get cooler and cooler with time. This is by the 30th to the 31st of the month, and then that will linger around really all the way out through the first several days of November. In terms of the area that I would expect to see the coldest temperatures compared to normal, it's going to be this region in here. As we work into early November, you can see the warmth tries to come back across the central part of the country, at least compared to normal. And so a decent cold front in here. Decent cold front, probably the most notable cold air of the season, right in time for Halloween, expected across the eastern and the southeastern part of the United States. Wouldn't even be shocked if we saw the season's first snowflakes in parts of the Great Lakes, the Northeast, maybe the Midwest, as we work into that time frame. In terms of our storms ahead, let's break this down for you all because, again, we've got numerous that we're keeping an eye on. Here's the one as we get into late this week. Low pressure system developing across the south central part of the country could lead to some heavy rainfall potential, maybe severe weather potential across parts of the southern plains and into Missouri and Arkansas. Lower impact into the Ohio Valley the further north that you go. After this storm, another one will be right on its heels. This is the 27th to the 29th. This is the big one. This is the one that I think could potentially produce some very heavy rainfall. Would not be shocked to see severe weather with this as we get a little bit closer. Where exactly that sets up, we need to fine tune. As we get probably later on into this week, we should have a little bit of a better idea of that. Wouldn't 100% be shocked to see some backside snowflakes up in the far upper Midwest through here as this storm system pivots further off to the east. Something to keep an eye on. Regardless, I think this is primarily a rain system, and then the bigger impact is the cold front that sweeps through and the fact that the low cuts off. We get a cut off upper level low. You can see that here on the Euro, and with that, that's going to lead to a cool, a windy, a probably rainy and misty October 30th and 31st across the Midwest, Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley. Anytime you see this type of a look, expect very windy conditions, expect misty, just really nasty weather conditions as we work towards your Halloween. You'll also note data trying to pick up on a hurricane down here near Cuba that will need to be watched very carefully. There's two distinct tracks with that right now. One this way, depending on how far south this low gets, and another one that's this direction here. For the most part, pretty much all of the members right now keeping this away from the East Coast. Worth keeping an eye on, but right now the chance for a U.S. impact is very low. In terms of this upper level low, here's kind of what we expect in terms of the impacts with that. I think that in terms of a potential frost risk, we'll need to watch further down to the south into parts of the Tennessee Valley, much below normal temperatures for a couple of days all the way down through the deep south. I think also with that low as it hangs around, again, areas of gusty winds and pesky rain as we go through Halloween day. Feels like we've had a lot of these types of systems around Halloween over the past several years, and another one expected as we get into the next 10 to 11 days from now. In terms of the tropical cyclone risk, here's our latest update. The highest risk right now kind of south of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, just to the east of Jamaica. As the storm approaches Jamaica, that's where the storm track diverges in terms of the model guidance right now, and it's all about how far south that cold front works. If it works further down to the south, it will pick up the storm and it will take this track. If it does not, it will go straight west into Central America. I think it's going to be very difficult to get a track towards the U.S. southeast coast as things stand right now. We're watching it, but at the time, for the time being, I think this is a Caribbean issue rather than a U.S. coastal issue. In terms of the pattern as we go into early November, this is something we've been talking about for quite a long time. As we got into MJO Phase 5, thunderstorm activity in Indonesia, the maritime continent, that should kick off our pattern change, and the data's seen that very well. I do think the EPS is a little bit too warm, a little bit too long ahead of our storm system and our cold front. That's a normal bias of it. But if you look at its pattern to close October and the first couple of days of November, this is exactly what we've been picturing for about 2 weeks now. And I think that, the warmer the normal air going to shift back to the west, probably a milder pattern continuing across parts of Canada. We've got a lot of high latitude blocking here over the Hudson Bay and Greenland. It's going to allow for consistently cooler than normal temperatures to develop for the eastern third of the country into early November. If you take a look at the La Nina MJO Phase 5 analog, which we've been showing for a couple of weeks, man, it matches up really close overall. Core the cooler air in the eastern part of the country, milder air shifting back to the central to western U.S. as we get into early November. And I would say that this probably lingers through the first 7 to 10 days of the month or so. This is the GEFS Weekly. I think it's doing a pretty good job. Don't take the anomalies verbatim at this distance, but I'm looking for general ideas here. And the general idea is this area is consistently cooler than normal for the most part the first 7 to 10 days of the month. If you're west of that circle, plains into the southwestern part of the country, warmer than normal temperatures will be the theme through the first week to 10 days of the month. What about beyond that? And we briefly talked about this on Friday in our weeks 3 and 4 outlook. Increasing signals that we are going to move into MJO phases 6 and 7, probably eventually phase 8 through the middle to latter part of November. This is going to favor the warmth to come back. I still think the middle part of November poses the risk of the milder air shifting back east for a time, especially across the Midwest and through the central part of the country. Maybe some cooler air lingering in the northeast, but a milder pattern with below normal demand possible for the midway part of the month, sometime between the 10th and the 20th, I would say, because both phase 6 and phase 7, if we look at phase 7 here, generally favors some milder air. But an interesting thing that I notice about this analog with MJO phase 7, note the higher pressure beginning to develop here over Alaska. That should kick off what will be another shot of colder air late in the month of November. And so, milder for the middle part of the month here. You can see the GEFS is actually picking up on that very well. But as we get into MJO phase 8, I do think that the back third of November, we're looking way out here at this point, but just to give a general idea, I think that we could get cooler again. So maybe a cool start, a milder middle of November, and then a cooler end to the month leading into December. So that is the general pattern progression right now as we get into the month of November. We'll talk more in detail about that tomorrow with our weeks 3 and 4 outlook. Till then, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Would highly recommend taking a look at those Clarity Daily Insights and those forecast videos if you have access to the Clarity platform as we go over the next couple of days to monitor these upcoming storm systems and cold fronts. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Chat soon.